I've used a lot of phones in 2025. We actually have dozens of them here at Zone of Tech HQ from pretty much every major brand that you can think of. But the reality is, a lot of these phones never make it into our videos. And that's exactly what this video is for. Welcome to my favorite phones of 2025, where I'll be going through my picks across multiple different categories. These aren't necessarily the best phones on paper, but they are my personal favorites. Also, one important thing, every phone on this list is something that I've actually used for a decent amount of time. So if you notice a phone missing, even though we have it here at the office, it's simply because I didn't get enough hands-on time to give it a proper, accurate opinion. And I want to start with my favorite camera phone. And out of everything that I've used this year, there are three phones that really stood out: the Xiaomi 15 Ultra, the Vivo X300 Pro, and, I know this may surprise you, the Poco F8 Ultra. And yes, Samsung, Google, and Apple are not on this list at all. The reason is simple. They haven't made any truly meaningful upgrades to their camera hardware in about 4 years. Apple did improve their telephoto, but as you'll see, it's still very weak compared to the competition. Google added an impressive ProRes zoom, but that's essentially regenerating the image, so you could argue that it's not a real photo. And Samsung, well, it's fine. Pretty much the same story as we've had since the S23 Ultra. So why are these three so good? Well, it comes down to seriously impressive camera hardware paired with really good processing that actually takes advantage of that camera hardware. And the results are genuinely incredible. So let's start with the Xiaomi 15 Ultra. This thing has a massive 1-inch main sensor, plus not one, but two telephoto cameras. One of them being a 200 megapixel sensor, very similar to the S25 Ultra's main camera, paired with a 4.3x lens. And on top of that, you get a 50 megapixel ultra-wide with a reasonably large sensor too. Simply put, this is the best smartphone camera hardware you can buy right now, and it is years ahead of what Apple, Samsung, and Google are using. Because of that, the Xiaomi 15 Ultra can produce photos that look almost like they came from a dedicated camera. It can even do true telephoto macro, something that none of the big three can do. And you can also add this optional camera grip, which basically turns it into a proper camera in both looks and controls. But it's not perfect. The processing has been a hit and miss for me. Sometimes the photos look like they've barely been processed at all. And for my taste, that's going a bit too far. So despite the insane hardware, this is not my pick here. Then we've got the Poco F8 Ultra that I recently started testing during my trip to the launch event in Bali. The thing that impressed me the most here is that despite the Poco costing only £749, with early bird offers of just £549, it's actually got very similar camera specs to the S25 Ultra. The main sensor is almost the same size, which, at a fourth of the resolution, actually makes its pixels bigger, and hence much better in low light than the S25 Ultra. The Persco module has a smaller sensor but a larger aperture and can do macro, which the S25 Ultra cannot. And the ultra-wide is also quite similar. Although, my favorite part about this phone has been its image processing, which just nailed every shot. Just look at how much better the Poco shots look compared to the iPhone 17 Pro Max. It's just night and day in terms of the colors, the detail, and everything really. However, my favorite phone camera of the year is this one, the Vivo X300 Pro. Hardware-wise, it is very similar to the Xiaomi 15 Ultra. You get the same telephoto and the same ultra-wide, with the only real difference being the main sensor. It's not a full 1-inch sensor, but it's still big, bigger than the iPhones. But what really makes the Vivo stand out is its processing. It's honestly next level. It nails every single shot, especially macro and zoom. I was at an Ed Sheeran concert recently and did some side-by-side shots with the Vivo and the iPhone, and you can probably see the difference for yourselves. Ed looks way sharper, more detailed, the colors are better, and even the video is noticeably cleaner on the Vivo. I'm generally shocked by how bad the iPhone 17 Pro Max still is, even with that new telephoto. It's just very poor. So yeah, the Vivo X300 Pro, the best phone camera that I've used this year. Which brings me to my favorite foldable, and I've used a lot of them this year. I started with the Oppo Find N5, which I absolutely loved for just how insanely thin it was, only 4.2 millimeters when open. The camera hardware was a bit underwhelming, but the processing was surprisingly good, so overall, I was very impressed. That being said, the software was okay, yeah, it wasn't my favorite, and it never launched outside of China. even though, like I said, I just loved using this phone. Then came the Galaxy Z Fold 7, which was a massive overhaul compared to the Fold 6. It was significantly thinner, just as thin as the Oppo, and even lighter. It's, to this day, the best feeling foldable I've ever used. And paired with Samsung software, it was honestly incredible. The only downside? The cameras, especially the zoom. Yeah, it wasn't great. After that, I tried the Honor Magic V5, which had by far the best cameras I used on a foldable up until that point. But despite its specs, it actually felt thicker than the Fold 7. The software was buggy and packed with bloatware, so yeah, I wasn't a big fan overall. I also used the Huawei Mate X7, similar story. Great camera, but weak software. And on top of that, getting normal apps running on this is still a pain because there's no proper Google services support. And software-wise, I also love the Pixel 10 Pro Fold. It is easily the best software experience on a foldable. Plus, you also get MagSafe support, which I really loved since I also use an iPhone. But the Pixel 10 Pro Fold is also the thickest and the heaviest out of all the foldables I've used here. So overall, my favorite foldable of 2025 is the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7. It's not perfect, the cameras could be better, but it delivers the best balance of form factor, software, battery life, and overall camera experience out of all of them. Which brings me to the third category, my favorite standard or slab phone. And there are three phones that I've enjoyed the most here: the iPhone 17 Pro Max, the S25 Ultra, and the Pixel 10 Pro XL. And it's actually very hard to pick a favorite here because they've all got their own problems, and all three have really been stagnating over the past 3 to 4 years, reusing the same camera hardware, in some cases even downgrading the experience. The S25 Ultra, for example, has a worse telephoto than the S22 Ultra, and the iPhone 17 Pro Max downgraded the portrait mode with its new 4x module as opposed to the previous 5x. Overall, I enjoyed using the Pixel the most thanks to its incredibly polished software. That's also really fun to use. Apple has been very glitchy lately. By lately, I mean over the past 3 or so years. However, I actually stopped using the Pixel 10 Pro XL when the 10 Pro Fold came out. So the iPhone is still my most used phone because of the integration with my Apple Watch, my iPad, and my Mac, all of which I use on a daily basis. So I guess it all boils down to the Pixel being my favorite out of the three to actually use, but the iPhone being the one that I actually end up using, despite its software problems and despite its underwhelming telephoto, just because of how well it works with all of my other Apple devices. Which brings me to my favorite slim phone, a trend that somehow started in 2025 and also died in 2025. I only used two slim phones this year, the Galaxy S25 Edge and the iPhone Air, and between the two, I definitely prefer the iPhone Air. It was thinner, felt more polished, and the weight distribution was just spot on. That said, the camera was very underwhelming. You only got a single module compared to two on the S25 Edge, and the battery life was terrible. I only got about half a day, which was very similar to the S25 Edge as well. So while the iPhone Air was my favorite slim phone, neither of these lasted in my pocket for more than about 2 weeks, mainly because of the camera and the battery downgrades. Now, before we continue, let's get into the holiday spirit with wallpapers. These two landscape designs are from my favorite packs of the month, which I think look incredible across all of these devices here. First, we have Winter Wonderland by Wallrod. This pack has a super clean and stylized look combined with some awesome color palettes, which really get me into the winter mood, whether that's on my iPhone, iPad, or desktop. And then we also have Snowy Serenity by Zara, a more realistic style that mixes in warmer shades to make any device look super cozy in stunning 8K quality. And there's a ton more for you to find in our app wallpapers, so check it out using the links below for free on iOS and Android. Now, before I talk about my overall favorite phone of the year, I want to mention two phones that I think were massive flops this year. And those are the iPhone 16e and the Nothing Phone 3. They were both severely overpriced for what they offered. The iPhone 16e cost £600, which is actually more expensive than the early bird offer for the Poco F8 Ultra. And for that, it comes only with one camera module instead of three, which is also really poor. It also comes with a 60Hz display, a massive notch, no MagSafe, an even weaker chip, because yes, the Poco comes with the new flagship Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5. Yeah, the 16e was just a bad phone, and buying an iPhone 17 or a refurbished iPhone 16 instead made so much more sense. And then the Nothing Phone 3 was equally disappointing. At £800, it was priced the same as the iPhone 16 and the new iPhone 17. And while Nothing called it a flagship, it did not have a flagship chip, and it did not have a flagship camera. In fact, the telephoto was worse than on Nothing's own Phone 3a Pro, a mid-ranger. Plus, the design was very controversial and they got rid of the glyph lights, which were iconic for Nothing as a brand. Yeah, I really don't know what happened there. Which actually brings me to my overall favorite phone of 2025, and that is the iPhone 17. Ironically, a phone that I didn't really use, it's the only one on this list, as I've been using the iPhone Air and the iPhone 17 Pro Max instead. However, we did do a video on it, and what I mentioned in that video was that the iPhone 17 is by far the best iPhone to get in 2025, as it is literally almost a Pro iPhone, but it costs $300 less. You get the same exact display, the same exact front camera, the same ultra-wide, a very similar main camera, also a very similar battery life. The only thing, the main thing that you're missing is the telephoto module plus some exclusive Pro photo and video features alongside a slightly weaker chip and 4 GB of less RAM. But aside from that, you get everything that the iPhone 17 Pro offers for $300 less. And for that price, it is such an incredible value, especially for an iPhone. But let me know, what's your favorite phone of the year down below. Don't forget to check out our app wallpapers for some awesome designs. And yeah, have a good holiday, and I guess I'll see you all in the new year. Zone of Tech, signing out. Cheers.